This is Bill Conroy, and you're watching the Breaking It Down show.
That's right. We do things over here, and we have a good time. I love talking to investigative reporters. You and I have a lot of similarities in our jobs. We were just talking about this off mic. The ability to, like, it's for me to do my job at the best in my version of my job in like reporting. There's a lot of ways to do it, and a lot of all those things. Is I need to know the nastiest motherfuckers around, and I got to make them my friends so that they introduce me to their other nasty fucker friends, and I infiltrate and I inculcate, and they inculcate me, and I become them. And the question I'm always asking myself is, who's running who? Who's running who? And I need to be so runnable that they think that they're running me, but I'm running them. Now, how does that relate to what you did? Because you've got to meet hard people to do what you do. By the way, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, glad to be here. I mean, kind of what you're talking about is you got to establish trust, right? And you can't really fake that. Humans are, especially at that level, are pretty good at picking up on whether you're BSing them or have another, agenda. They're just going to pick up on it. So you can't lie to them. You got to tell them whatever you tell. Like if you say you're going to protect them as a source because they won't talk to you otherwise, you got to do that. You got to be willing to be subpoenaed and go to jail if necessary. So I don't make that promise lightly, but in some cases, it's necessary because it's going to be the only way you get the information you need to get to the next level. And right, those people, maybe aren't going to show up, at least in the reporting, because they're off the record or whatever, but they're going to get you to the next person that will talk to you, or that the documents or the evidence you need to prove what they're saying. So that's kind of the game. But you're absolutely right. The biggest mistake I found I made early in my career, and I think young reporters often make, is they just don't shut up. You got to listen. You got to. That's so hard to get through that silence, but you got to do it. That's when the best stuff comes.
That's when the best stuff, when you can relate a reality that you can barely believe yourself to the audience, in my case, the military or the government, right? And I'm like, you're not going to believe this. And so here's what I do is, so I'll go, I don't believe what I just heard. I have to go and check, because when I say this, if I say this and I haven't done the work to double proof it, triple proof it, then my ability to communicate with my peers on my side of the game goes away. Like, it just drops. They'll kick me out of theater. They'll get mad at me. They'll say, why didn't you check this? This was, and maybe I'm wrong. By the way, maybe I'm wrong, because this stuff's really hard to understand.
Yep.
And so when I come at something, I learned later in my career to build the gotcha trap, because I know what question, I know what objection. So when I say my source said this, and this is the funny thing, I on X and everything, if I source something, I promise, it's like my source is solid. I believe what they say, and then I go check it with somebody else totally independent, and I try to get around it. And sometimes I'll say, I think, it seems like, I'll hedge, and that's when I'm like, I'm not sure about this, But that's the level of game you have to play in terms of what happens. And still people will be like, I don't care about your sources. Like, do you know how hard it was to build this source, and how many times I've tested them and how much they trust me? So
that the other danger of that, as I'm sure you've run into, is getting too close to your sources.
Oh yeah. And
because they've come through before, 100 times, and that one time that they got a hidden agenda, you miss it. So like you said, vetting them, like triangulating. If they tell you X, you got to figure out from a couple other sources that what they're saying points to the same thing. Then you got a high degree of confidence that it's accurate. But then trying to convince your editor, or in your case, whoever your commander was, that's a whole other story. And they tend to want to, their job is to pick it apart, right? At least that's kind of what, when I was an editor, it was like, I got to find the holes in this, because that's what I'm trying to, make sure we got covered, so we don't get jammed up later. It's got to be bulletproof.
It does. And your source deserves that. Your work deserves it. And the people you're working for, your readers, they deserve that. Knowing like, hey, when Bill says something, I'm going to show you a picture real quick here. This is a plan I pulled out of a governor in Afghanistan. You don't got to worry about the details of it, but this is the actual product I delivered to the army. And they looked at me and they said, that Afghan didn't do this in PowerPoint. Like, yeah, dummy, I did it. I translated what he said. And they're like, this plan's bullshit, right? Because they rejected it because they couldn't handle this reality that someone could think in all these ways. And I said, here's what I did. I built a slide. I took it over to the governor, but I jumbled it all up and I got it all wrong. And the governor's like, Pete, you idiot. He grabbed his pen and started changing things and moving things around and worked with my interpreter for 2 hours to fix the slide back to the original plan. And that got the Army to go, oh shit, you weren't fucking. And that work and the challenge of it and the proof elevated my credentials with that unit. Next unit, they don't care about that. You got to go do it again.
Yeah, every story's different.
You can build up a reputation. How we doing?
Yeah, no, and that actually works kind of in the field too, because the sources you already have, if they trust you, can turn you on to more sources. That's part, and that's part of the game, right? And again, once you establish trust with your editor or your commander, the editors change. That's true, and you got to rebuild it. But you've learned a process. You know what they want. You anticipate what they want, and you get it ahead of time, and that solves most of the problem. But that means you gotta learn. You got to learn to deal with people above you and the people that are potentially the risks, and the people that you actually, whether they're your partners, your coworkers or whatever, that you can trust too. Because I definitely needed that. I needed people that could do translations. I needed people that had could see around the corners I was missing a little bit, because there are blind spots. Everyone's got them. I had them for sure.
Yeah.
And that's where the teamwork comes in.
Just everybody listening and watching, pay attention to what Bill is saying, because there is so much richness in this. The stuff he's talking about, the stuff I'm talking about, and we're hitting the ball back and forth because this is where the work is. This is where understanding. This is how you get your black belt. Is how to anticipate these problems. That anticipation. When you said that, I'm like, yes, it's anticipation. Like the Army will list 150 questions. Here's the things we want to know. Who's the money man? Who's making the bombs? Where are the bombs showing? Yeah. I get all that. You don't got to tell me that. That's obvious shit. What they don't know, and my job is to understand and anticipate what their need is going to be. And the way I characterize this is, instead of looking for a needle in a haystack, when will the bomb come here that's going to blow us up? They may never tell me that. It may take me 2 years to find out about something that's going to happen in 2 weeks. You just don't know the pace of the operation. So, of course, I'm going to look for that stuff. But why am I looking for a needle in a haystack when right over there is a field full of needles? And if I can give the commander needles every day, he's like, hey, we're doing so much more business with all these needles. And the next time the commander tells me, quit grabbing all them needles and bringing them to me and telling me things I need to know, it hasn't ever happened. It's never going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. A comparison on the side I have with journalism is there's your go-to sources that are useless, but they'll give you a quote, right? Like maybe they're official, but they're not going to give you anything of value.
Right.
And then there's your deep sources that, at least as a journalist, most journalists are this way. You don't share with anyone. I mean, those are you keep them in your head. And that's the deepest level. And then there's the level just above that where maybe, you've used them before. You're protecting them, but your editor or your commander may know who they are.
Right.
And they've agreed to protect them as well. And so that way, that information is that's the ones where you can have blind spots. But most of the time, that's just going to be good information that people trust because they've come through before. But vetting it every time, because that one time is the one time where everything falls apart. And it may be not even intentionally. Maybe they got bad information, right? That's something you always got to check. So there's a lot of. I don't know about you, but every time I put a story, to press, there was always one extra thing I was still trying to do. But the deadline came. I had to file it. I left something out because I couldn't quite prove it. But I'm 80%, 90% confident it's the case, and but I can't go with it yet.
Yeah, no, I get it. And there's things that I hold on to because I just don't know, and I have to get a hunch or an inkling, and then I can test. And that just takes time. And so
Yeah.
if those and it takes me, let's say, okay, so physically sitting down and writing, not note taking in the field, not everything, just sitting down. It probably takes me 6 hours to write a report, and they aren't that long. But my audience is
Mhm.
so hard to communicate with because I'm communicating vertically, I'm communicating cubically, out to like this team, that team. They have to understand the same thing, and someone's going to take a line out of my report and put it into another report, and I'll see that line like, hey, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
They
Out of
flipped
context.
it. So it's very hard for me to communicate, but I can communicate directly with someone higher, someone laterally, somewhere in the matrix. And I'm not saying matrix like robot matrix, everybody. I'm saying like picture like things that are connected, but they are neither vertical nor horizontal.
Right. Right.
And so that's one of the challenges for me is how do I get a clear message through and hedge, not put my thought, I can't put my thoughts in, but I have to kind of keep it as clean as possible. There's an area for me to put context in, and then at the bottom I can put my analysis. But
Mhm.
sometimes I'm so laser focused that I need someone to move my eye over here. So I'm like, oh, and then it's a whole new world. So it's like a microscope, and I'm looking at a whole bunch of euglena, and I'm like, these are
Yep.
great. And I'm writing a report on euglenas,
That's so.
like,
That's so.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
so
yeah.
true.
I'll set up.
It's like we would call it like some reporters that weren't very good at, they're typically newer, is just dumping their notebook, right? And
Right.
it's the process that you're talking about that 6 hours. That's critical because that's where
Yeah.
you are pulling out and ordering and actually whether you put a fact in or leave it out is huge, right?
Hmm.
Because that the people that you're communicating to are going to know that or not know that for some reason. So yeah, you sound like you're similar. I don't want anything in that report that every sentence I can
Yeah.
justify, and every
Right.
fact I can justify and back up. And then it's a matter of like, I don't know with you, like I would communicate to the editor. If I wasn't the editor, I'd want it. Like the
Hmm.
leads that I couldn't chase down, the things that I'm still following up on.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
there how much more time do I have to do that? Is this it? Is this story over now, or can we keep pursuing it? Because they, like they had a resource issue, and
Yeah.
there were 10 stories to cover, and they want you on the next story right away, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you didn't often have time to you know like dig in the way you wanted to. That was
Yeah.
frustrating, but it was part of the business.
Yeah.
That's why I write books, because then I can do that on my
Oh,
own time,
yes.
right? Right.
Yeah.
I can do
Yes.
all that, but a lot of times at least with the journalism, you're in the field. It's like time is your biggest enemy.
Oh,
It's not.
it's
It's
so
not.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what you're fighting all the time.
Time
Yeah.
and access. Time and
And
access. Got it.
clearly,
Oh,
yeah, access is
yeah. Yeah.
definitely.
No, man, this is the same thing. It is. I mean, obviously, there's different subtle differences, but I am working a beat. And then the Army will be like, hey, why don't you come back and do something else for a while? But we may send you back out there. And so it's sort of hanging there, but I've got to tell them the next story. One of the things so once I build up my bona fides with the unit and they start to realize, hey, this guy goes out and kills, then they become unreasonable. They're like, we love what you're doing, Pete. Everybody pay attention to Pete. Everybody read Pete. And all of a sudden now I've got this readership, right? And so people are like,
Mhm.
Pete, tasking. And I'm like, hey, I can't do all that. And
Right.
they'll say, we want you to go find, and I'll just use an example that actually happened. We want you to go find out who the shadow governor is in County 7 over there. Can you do that in, I don't know, 10 days? Like 10 days? I just spent 6 months over here. I can do something in 10 days, but I can't tell you what it'll be. It'll be amazing. You're going to get the same level of work,
Yeah.
but A to B, I can't promise A to B. I can promise A to something you're going to love. And that is a sales job for me to get them to go, fine, go do something amazing,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, yeah, go ahead.
But you got to set the expectations, because otherwise, yeah, you're right. People do not, well, generally people in general, because they don't do this, but even in the business, they don't realize how much work, and how much stress and pressure goes into, getting that original information and dealing with
Yeah.
sources. And dealing even if you have documents, you got to verify and vet the doc, right? You got to that the documents you got from that it was Pakistani official. You got one point, he's legit, right? You've already vetted him, and you assume the documents are because he's giving them to you, but that you still got to do something to kind of an extra step to show, like you did. The guy proved it, right? And that's a good proof. That was a great proof. So, and then you got something, and then you're on to the next thing. You don't necessarily find out what impact your intelligence or your report had. You don't. It's kind of frustrating. Sometimes you do. Occasionally, you get some. You just see it because there's a direct impact from it. But most of the time, not. Most of the time, it's kind of thankless work. It seems like it
is,
and that can get inside your head, and that can affect your performance. So staying motivated is another big thing. You gotta figure ways to stay motivated. At least for me.
No, you're right. And then sometimes you have to demotivate on purpose so that your brain can catch up. Because I know for me, I'd lay down and take a nap because you don't sleep a lot in combat. Like you in my world, you have to just work. If something's going out the door, I got to go with them. Right. I've always got to be present. I can't get outside enough. For me, access in a non-permissible environment means just going out. So when you take that nap, your brain's like, hey, while you were busy sleeping, I thought of all these things, or shower or something else to change my world. And then stuff will just lock into place. I'm like, I just had the most amazing nap. Give me the whiteboard. And I start translating. I can write both hands. And so I'll start writing on the board like an insane person, trying to sketch out these ideas. But it was because, not that I demotivated, but I purposely slowed down because I learned that, hey, there's benefits in the rest. And also your brain is going to catch up on some big things that you are missing. And it's incredible when they lock. It's like a movie when it locks into. Like, oh my God! I can't believe.
That's so similar. The experience. It's like an aha moment. It's like the little light bulb, right? Like I didn't see this till just now. For me, I get that like doing it. Like it's not a strenuous exercise, but I like to take a long walk. Like when I'm walking, I think, especially even if I'm listening to music and I'm walking, I get in a different zone. Yeah, right. Your brain. It's like you're outside that world you were in, and you can kind of look at it differently and come up with different angles that you were missing when you're immersed in it. Yeah, absolutely. That's true. So well, so you can go get a job as an investigative reporter anytime you want. You got all the skill sets now.
No, right? Yeah. Well, the problem is always the money. You got to go out and earn money, and everybody wants you to. Well, you don't seem to know anything about it. You haven't done it before. I guess we'll pay you nothing. You're like, no, you can't pay me nothing.
They'll pay you nothing even if you do. Even if you do. Just all the things we talked about is why there is so little investigative reporting left. Is it's expensive. And what's it produced for the newsroom or for the company that owns the newsroom? More importantly, usually headaches, right? You start ticking off powerful people. They got lawyers, they've got, different pressure points with advertising, or they got different, and I don't know if you got a comparable thing when you're, dealing in the Army, but but I imagine somewhere in the command structure, there's people that don't want to know the information you're bringing back, or it works against what their plans. And that, I imagine that politics exists too.
Oh, imagine if the general who's above you loves some initiative that I'm tearing apart because it ain't working. Yeah. I mean, that gets attention, and then the people who are protecting their career, I call it the accountability ladder. So everybody's climbing the ladder, looking up everybody else's ass, and the real shit that's on the ground, nobody's paying attention to because it's all about this ladder and it's all vertical. And so, like, the example is the ambassador's coming. Oh no, the ambassador's coming. We have to make sure everything's perfect. We have to listen to what the ambassador says. We have to. Let's go tell the governor of the local area that he has to get himself ready. And I can raise my, I love to sit in the back row, man. I raise my hand and I'm like, have you guys asked the governor what he wants to do when the ambassador comes? No. Why would we ever do that? Because I don't know, he's the fucking governor, like we could act like it. So then tasking, I go see that governor and I'm like, hey man, how are things going with us Americans? How are we doing? And that guy's like, you motherfucker. If he trusts me enough and he's honest with me, then I'll illustrate that relationship and how challenged it is. And that makes the partners who directly partner with that makes them hot. The commander loves it though, because he can then tune that machine up.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
sure, it's a similar thing in that you have to look internally at what we need and what we want, and what we can tolerate.
Yeah. That's the toleration part is big. And it took me a long time to learn that because I was like an idealistic,
Same.
like First Amendment, free speech and all that's, I still believe in all that, but it's not that it's yeah, the other people have free speech too, and in many cases their speech is much louder than yours and can shut yours down. You don't do any good.
Yeah.
You got to pick your battles, I guess, and but you still on some of those you got to take a stand, right? I'm sure there's some initiatives where you were going against the groupthink that was there,
Yeah.
but you believe that it was so important that you needed to, and those are the battles you do have to take on. At least that's my thinking.
Yeah. I only get so much of that because that's not my job. So I have to lean on the commander to solve that problem for me in most cases. And
Yeah,
so when I'm building relationships with that commander, I explain to him, like, this is where, if you're going to use me as this tool, understand that, I have to
makes
deal with the staff. Yeah. And so those guys, once that guy goes, it's like a shake. You're under my protection. Oh, all right. Keep in mind, I'm going to fuck up and I'm going to put you on the spot too, by the way. I don't mean to, but I'm going to be focused here. I'm going to tell you what I see. If you ask me, I'll tell you what I think. But I'm not perfect. And when those guys can handle that, and they're like, one guy, he's the guy I got this from. He's like, my ass is giant. I could chew on it all. Anybody can. I don't care because I know what to do. And that's why I get left alone to do what I do. And this is a commander was awesome. He was just a force. So he didn't get,
yeah,
it was great.
That's the exact relationship an editor and a
Right.
reporter, a good reporter, and the editor. Yeah, if that reporter, you go to because I've been an editor too, and the best reporters I'd go to the mat for because I trusted them, and I knew that they were right. I wouldn't do it unless we'd have the conversation before then. Yeah, every time because those are the ones that you got. Those are gems. You got to keep those people, and they're going to be they're harder to manage because they tend to be mavericks. But man, do they come back with it? They get the stuff every time.
Yeah. Sometimes when we communicate, it's one word, and I'm trying to be very deliberate about how each word goes together. And so again, 6 hours. And so if I put this word here and it's a hedge, or I'm just gently sliding a bit of my opinion in there, because it's all a sales job. All of that is very detailed. And sometimes that word choice can get me in trouble. And again, I'll give you an example and we'll work off of that. So I had written about this. We were going to do a wheat seed distro. And I'd seen these things over and over and over again in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we were always so bound up on the Afghans or the Iraqi farmers are dumb. They won't know what to do. This is wheat seed for planting, not for eating. So make sure you tell them, don't eat it. And so we would treat the Iraqis and the Afghans like they were idiots. And so I already knew there was a problem with this whole thing because I'd seen this program fail over and over and over again. I'd never seen anybody go out and go, look at all this wheat, like they never do that. And so I'm like, I need to show them the full thing. So I go out and I talk, anticipating the whole operation. I talk to the governor, I talk to the farmers, I talk to the farmers in the gun, do all the things you're supposed to do. And then I write my report. And then this colonel who owned the ag effort in that area smashed it in like this public email, that went on the distro list. And then I came back and I said, unlike Colonel so-and-so. And that got him mad. And then everything else, I wrote this whole thing challenging what he had said. And again, keep in mind, this is a colonel. Next step up is a general. He's not on the ground like I am. He has no chance in this argument. And so he got mad. He wanted to be kicked out of theater. And he went to his peer, who's the commander, colonel, next step up general, trying to get promoted there. And I was going to go home. My boss, my editor, my guy went up and said, "Oh no, I got an ass chewing, Pete, and so I'm gonna yell at you. Here I am yelling at you right now." And he talked just like that. He's like, "Yeah, when you said unlike and you called him out publicly, even though he had called me out publicly before that, you made him mad. You made him mad. And what saved you was the number 2 guy, also next rank up general. A lot of higher ranking people, and I'm just Pete." My boss said to him, "Show me where Pete's wrong and I'll send him on the next thing smoking." And the DCO, the deputy, he goes, fuck. And then he walked away because everything I had was bulletproof. Every single thing, And so that saved my ass that time. It didn't always happen.
Yeah, no, there's times I got shut down, and and that's when you say, oh, some people, at least you get the urge. I did. I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna take my football and go somewhere. But usually other people or friends, you get talked off the cliff because it's going to be the same thing at somewhere else. You got to learn to navigate this world.
Yes.
And it's not. There's no purity in any of this. It's all shades of something, and you've got to figure out where your space is, and like what you're talking about really is point of view. Like you got to own your point of view. And that's when like you said, well, I'm probably putting a little opinion in here. That's maybe I got to tone that down, but overall my point of view is presented on the facts that I got, the facts that I think are pertinent to include here, the facts that I proved. Facts aren't a point of view, but you still got to figure out which facts matter and how to find them. And that's all from your point of view. So I think it's very important for people to own their point of view. And at least in my world, your world is a little different way of looking at it, but I tend to want to punch up. I don't see the point in using all these resources and all my time and skills to, beat up on somebody, that's got far less power than I do. Right. That to me doesn't make sense, but you got to charge. Like if you're out trying to find, a bad actor or how to locate them through other people, that's not, there's not a lot of room for point of view in there. You got to do that. And, and then you go in and use your skill set. And then when you get back, that's when you got to use your point of view, right? When you own your point of view, when you write that report, know what it is, understand how you're writing it. For the readers, for me, the same way. I may very well think this is a bunch of hooey, but I also know 50% of my readers think it's great. The other 50% agree with me. So how do I write that and still not communicate what's the whole point of this? That's what why does it matter and what does it mean? Those are the two questions every time.
And I don't get the pleasure of, because I'm in the field, and the field is so special in terms of access and everything else, and the risk involved. You're rolling the dice.
Yeah, well,
I don't get, in your world too. If you're looking at the cartels and everything, that's not gentle work. It's hard. It's hard on the body, it's hard on the psyche, everything else. It's hard to make a living and all these things. Why the heck do you still do it? Why do you take on all of this hard stuff? That's what I want to ask you is I know we love it. I know we talk about it, but it would take a lot for me to go back into the field, even investigative reporting. And basically I'm unemployable in that because I know what it takes. And I'd rather do this for less money, maybe. And so why do you do it?
That's the $1 million question. And I still ask myself, I think it's evolved over time. I think originally I was a bit of an adrenaline junkie, you know what I mean? I enjoyed that kind of environment. I didn't like to admit it, but it's, I had the skills, which you either have them or you don't. And we all got to find where we fit in life. Like I would have loved to have been skilled, doing something, like I grew up in a working class environment. So it's like everyone could fix cars and, like rebuild engines. And I was just like, I couldn't do that. I wasn't good at that. Right. Or I wasn't good at skilled labor, carpentry or any of that. It was horrible. So this is what I was good at. And then I found the field I was good at where those skills were in demand, I guess. But then there was, early it was like, wow, this is, you're in your 20s and, you don't think you can die. This was exciting. I enjoyed this. It was challenging. And then as I got older, it became about something else because it wasn't about that adrenaline anymore, right? At least for me. And then it was more like, am I doing good or harm, right? And I got to make a living. I often did journalism that they wouldn't print, like the investigative stuff I would do for other news publications, often for little or no pay because the mainstream media wasn't doing it anymore. So clearly I was driven to do this stuff. And then you ask yourself, are you just is it an ego? Is it like, do you actually think you're making a difference? Is this like, is that what you tell yourself, or are you making a difference? And then like, how do you put your ego inside that? Like, you're not, clearly you're not doing this on your own. You need a lot of other people to help make it happen. And, so now it's really about like the network of people I work with in many ways, like having that community and then also picking our battles and doing some good, like, investigating, like the drug war doesn't work like it's sold to us, right? That's got to be something that I want to look into, right? I got to have an interest in. And so far it's kind of consumed all my work. Like it was the one story that I couldn't put down. And that's kind of how I look at it now. It's just this story sucked me in. And other people that cover this that I respected, like writers like Charles Bowden, who's no longer with us, or Gary Webb, who I, got to know right before his death a little bit. It's kind of the same thing. It's like at some point, maybe they all tried to stop doing it, but they got sucked back in. You get dragged back into it. It's hard to explain, but it owns you more than you own in it in many ways. You start to feel that way. So I'm retired now officially from that, because you're right. It's like being on the front lines. You can't. Yeah. You're not gonna sleep. You're just gonna burn yourself out, and then the things you learn and know are gonna haunt you a little bit. You can't unknow them. So yeah, that world has got a hold on me, but it's also one I'm running from at the same time. If that makes sense.
No, it's true. And there's other things that we can do to take our experience and make folks better. It's not mentoring young reporters, because they don't want to hear from us. But I'm curious, so in the counterintelligence world in the Army, right? So I'm making the pool from intel down to Army counterintelligence. We still have all these sub-disciplines, so like whatever it is, investigative reporter versus financial reporter. Maybe it's even more neck down than that. We don't have a badge. We don't have an award that we get, like, oh, that guy's a black belt. He's excellent. And so I'm critical of field people, because they usually don't spend enough time there. You graduate up, you get further from the field, and you become a great agent, but not at collecting, and reporting, in my sense, collecting, reporting is so hard, and it's so hard to remain in contact with the ground. Not that many people really elevate. And so my peers in my field that I have respect for when it comes to combat collecting, there's only a few of them. And we speak this language that we're talking now. And if one of those peers, so one, the scarcity of these things, the people that I respect as a default, I try at my best to extend respect to other guys who have done it less, but don't have the black belt in my mind, but probably are pretty better than I allow. So I try to force myself to accept that, and I'm struggle with that. But also, if you and I were peers in combat collection and you had a completely different view of the same thing, and I have a conundrum, because I'm infallible and I can't stand that you might have a different thing. And if I get a sniff, a whiff at all of politics in that, not policy, politics, then my disgust meter goes up high enough that I'm embarrassed by how high it goes, and my disdain for that person's work. And boy, I become really judgy. So these are some of the flaws that I detect in myself when I look at my peers, their work, their beliefs, and then their accuracy compared to mine, if we are in any kind of way cross. How did I do?
I think that's exactly the case. And like with peers in my business, there's some I really respect. There's others that I'm, suspect of, maybe for no other reason than that they, the people that are shouting the loudest usually are the ones with the least accurate picture of things, my experience. But that's not always the case. Not always. It kind of sends off bells for me. But yeah, like what you just said reminded me of actually a story I covered in the old U.S. Customs Service, which became Homeland Security. Part of it was merged into ICE, but the agents there, the Latino agents, and this was true across all the federal law enforcement drug agencies, they would tend to put the Latinos in undercover work because they speak the language, they fit in, they look, it makes a lot of sense. The problem with that, though, there was a lawsuit over it later, is that they didn't get management experience. So very few Latinos got promoted to supervisors or commanders, as you say, because they never got the chance to manage people. They were always used in undercover work. And that was like a conundrum. How do you fix that? And and I think, we had a similar problem with or issue with journalism where, and I remember the owner of the newspaper company just saying this to me once. He says, some people are meant to be reporters. They won't make good editors. And you got, half the trick is figuring out which people belong in that bucket, and which ones we want to groom for like a management, editor in chief role, even a publisher. And so they picked you out quick, and there is a certain type, but most of it was self-selection, and I kind of fell in the bucket of, I love investigative reporting, and I did editing because I had kids and I had to make a little more money, but it never left me. Like, it's still, and it's what I go back to now. It's just that whole process of, I don't know, maybe you could speak to that. What is it? Like, there's a moment where, like, first of all, you generally are on your own. You're out there on your own.
Right.
And you have to use all the skill set that you have, all your thinking on your feet, reading the room, every skill you ever picked up. Some you don't even realize you have till other people kind of say you're good at that. Well, I didn't realize that's just what I do. Mostly that's how talent works. And then, you've got to take that risk. If you can't be scared because you're going to get jammed. So the type of person that's good in that environment, I think, is someone, and I don't know what happens to you, but when I'm in a fight or flight situation, I tend to go to fight. I tend to, things get clearer. They slow down a little bit.
Sure.
And I operate better in that environment, I think, than a more normal environment. But I'm also really afraid of that at the same time, because I know how fast it can go sideways.
Yeah, I know I'm not thinking clearly in those situations. I am relying on my training and trusting in that. But if the environment that I'm in doesn't reflect directly to any training that I've had, and I'm defaulting to this action, bad things are going to happen, at some point. And so, like, if you're sitting in a room and you're trying to read it and all I read is danger, I now have to get rid of that, because these guys are ultra perceptive.
Yep.
And so if I don't seem like I'm calm, then I'm going to create these outcomes that I'm not comfortable with. And if I'm not calm, I'm not believable. And so you have all these.
Yeah, there's all this.
Tension. Yeah. And that's not where people want to be. If you want to raise kids and have a picket fence, I'd rather be an editor than that. And so I don't blame anybody for ending up out of the field and inside a building. They all want to be us. So in the intel world, there are collectors, there are analyzers, and then there are like the operations people who are like, figure out where to put a Pete.
Right.
That he best works, right? And then there's combinations, but really the collector is the one that everybody wants to be, but not even 10% of people can really do it well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same in journalism. There's beat reporters that are good at just getting the what story, what happened. It takes years of experience, and there's just so few opportunities to get good at investigative journalism. It's a learned. You got to have the skill set, right? The talent, but you still got a lot to learn, and it takes years. And I assume it's the same in your field. That the investment of you can't discount the amount of experience that's invaluable. And that's what an institution should try to hang on to, and they don't always recognize it. But it's that situation where you're in a room with somebody, you need information from them. They have really no incentive to give it to you, so you got to create the incentive. And so there's the first hurdle, and then the second hurdle is not freaking out, like listening, just not. As soon as they sense that you're scared or paranoid, they're going to get paranoid. That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
Nothing good comes of it.
One of the things I've learned overall too, and this is partly because you get probably more cynical as you get older, but also you learn certain lessons. And so when something big and bad happens, a dam gets blown up in the Ukraine war versus Russia, or the Nord Stream pipeline gets blown up, and I'm like, until someone says otherwise, or a pandemic breaks out in the lab in China, it's probably us. because we have the ability to do these things. It's hard to put that much explosive surreptitiously into a dam and blow it up. It's hard, and it's just not a thing one person can do, And so I start with, oh boy, because I know the CIA. I know, like, they do a lot of great things. They've saved our ass a million times. They do all kinds of great stuff, but they've also done some crazy bullshit.
They screw up, yeah, and that's what my book is. The latest book, the Great Pretense, is about. Really the very specific area of the CIA involvement with the drug war. And, it didn't take much because DEA has been complaining about CIA forever because they blow up DEA cases because their missions are completely different. But what you're saying is, there's when they screw up something, it's usually not small. It's usually a big thing.
Yeah.
And they get a lot right. I mean, you're right too. That,
they do.
My book probably is, it's the negative side of the blowback side, the stuff that doesn't work, the dysfunction. But on the other hand, there's stuff that they're doing that nobody else wants to talk about, that nobody else, like, regardless of your politics, you might even say, but yeah, it's got to be done, and somebody's got to do it. It's the sad truth of life, and that world is the stakes are even higher. I mean, it's not like you're going in there with a paper and a pen. You're going in there. You're gonna do some damage to an opponent, and if they're gonna if you get caught, you're done. It's life and death.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I thought you were talking about my job for a second there.
Well, I think it's probably your job more than my job. I think you probably face more of that than I did, for sure.
Oh my gosh,
because they know who I am coming in, and it's not like I'm sneaking up on them or coming in with an agenda. They know I work for X paper and I'm writing about X. All they don't know is what I'm going to put in the story, maybe, or whether I'm actually going to be honest and protect them as a source, not mention them.
Yeah,
I got to overcome that. But generally, I don't have any power over them. But they look at you. You're the U.S. military. They find out, right?
Yeah.
And you're a threat right out of the box. In a real sense.
This is and I travel with those guys most of the time. There are times when I don't, but I have to be very careful about that because I'm completely exposed, and I'm now exposing other people to my choice and putting them at risk, and that's not my job. So I'm not supposed to do that. I do it as a black belt when I need to, but not lightly. But my job, when I go out and I'm with a whole bunch of young creatine-filled infantry dudes who've got, M60s or saws or all these things, rocket launchers, I have to separate myself from those guys. I'm with them, but I have to have that farmer, that businessman, that warlord to see me as Pete. And so I've got to actively try to, these are my guys. I'm 100% on the side, and I'll tell, like, the farmer, I have no illusions. Like, these guys are my guys, and we're together. But I want to make sure that you're in a better condition when we leave. How do I help you? What do I need to know? Who do I need to know? And so then they start to understand that. And so, like, I take my gear off. I've got to wear gear because that's the rules, right? But when I get to wherever I get to, I'll probably wear this t-shirt, ball cap, and then body armor, right? And I try to look like my guys so that they know where I'm at. But my helmet is different. I don't put the cover on it to make it camp. I want the commander to know where I'm at, and I don't mind standing. I'll wear a red shirt. I don't care about that. But it's like, oh, that guy's with those guys. That's Pete. He's with those guys. And then I talk in terms of, these are my buddies. And then I have my meeting, and I get to know the folks on the ground more. But I'm always trying to communicate to them. I'm trying to help you communicate to these guys so that they're less scary, so that they're going after the right guys, so they don't make mistakes. And that kind of gets me in the door with them. And then they'll say, who you need to talk to? Not Farmer Dave, but Mullah Bob. Mullah Bob is the guy around here who really knows everybody. And then once I start getting introduced out of the American circle, that's when my need for those guys shrink. They're still there. I'm still trying to, how do I get to Mullah Bob? We had to do a mission. We're going to go there. Now I'm directing the unit a little more. but that's all of that though. All of that, Bill, is black belt work. Like the regular collector's been in the ground for 6 months. He can't orchestrate like that and then slowly separate himself out from that group physically and also as a group when you see us, so that I become, oh, that's Pete and the Army. That's what I want, Pete and the Army. So wherever I go, that, oh, you're Pete. We've heard about you. That's what I want.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. And I imagine most of the people you're dealing with, they're the enemy that you're up against. When they present themselves, they're there with armed men too. So they're probably used to, not that they like it, but they're probably used to that. So so you establish rapport and trust, and that kind of goes into the background, and you can actually get something accomplished. I have, not had to. I've had people like watch my tail, like meet in a public space and make sure I had somebody, in the distance when I was really, that's probably happened once, where once or twice where I met with a source that I didn't completely trust, but I don't have an army. So it's most, but again, most, like, I'm not walking into those situations regularly either. It's, there's like one time in Juarez where I felt like, my life really threatened. And we were tailed by, because the cops were the cartel there. But the more I thought about it after I got out of it, they weren't going to do anything to me. I had a U.S. passport. They're going to, U.S. citizens, they're going to make big news. It brings heat on the business. They're not going to lightly do something to you. Some idiot with a fast trigger, trigger finger, you don't know. That's what I worry about. It's the stray bullets or the the young kid who did that, hasn't thought it out, and decides he's going to punch your ticket today. But that can happen even if you're not a reporter.
It's true. It's true.
But you're just putting yourself in a situation more. And you mentioned something earlier about family, and I think I saw one of your prior shows where the guy was in a clandestine service, I assume for CIA, wasn't married, and that was one of the reasons it's really hard to have a family. I read about that a little bit in the book. It's something like I wondered if I was a sociopath for a while. Did I not care about my family? Clearly I did, but I didn't. I felt the risk. That the risk was always, directed at me. And it wasn't until much later, in particularly one story, where my I had, basically I was a car accident, but it made me think, it was a hit and run, made me think, like, for the first time, because my kid was in the car, that is my family threatened by what I do? Is my work actually a threat to my family? My wife's very supportive. That's the first thing. And she knows what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And she's active herself in different things. She's in education, but my kids grew up with it. But I still ask myself that. I don't have a good answer to it. I mean, so far not, because everyone's fine. But there were times when I wonder, am I being selfish? Is this work I'm doing, at risk, that I'm willing to take the risk, but I'm putting it on other people, like you said. Like I got to be worried about the people around me too. And so I don't know what else to say about that, except it's a conundrum. That's the one drawback of what I do, that I've over the years, that I still coming to grips with, I guess.
Yeah, it's the conundrums. You're right. And so when 9/11 happened, a lot of things for people like me changed. And so the opportunity, because before that, the opportunity to go from the Army and CI to the CIA, it really wasn't a normal path. They really didn't care for us, not because we weren't good, or just we were.
It's a rivalry.
It's a rivalry and a different approach, quite frankly. And so I have to be fast. I may never come back to this village, and that's not how they operate. And so they would rather just take the clay and mold it first time, and so that was sort of an organization. But then all of a sudden, we need more clay, and so I had a real shot at getting hired. And when push and shove came together, I didn't want to be gone away from, because I would have only wanted to go into the clandestine service, and that means leaving, and that means not seeing my daughter forever, and I didn't want to. And then it turns out I went ahead and did that anyhow. But I think our fields there's this and that. Our fields, we do collect psychopaths, sociopaths. We all have to have tendencies like that to compartmentalize these awful things so that we can do it. And I just don't think you can survive in the field long if you don't have, look, you have to have a mastery over those things. You have to work through your problems and all these things. And I'm not saying everybody is a psychopath or a sociopath, but those tendencies have to be capable for you and available so that you can say, oh, that's horrible. It's not going to affect me today. Put it aside.
Yeah, compartmentalization is key.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
And I don't open those boxes sometimes. I'm getting older, so they're starting to open on their own.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And looking back.
I do.
But that's exactly what I had to do with it. Exactly.
Yeah, I realized the other day that I have flashbacks. And I didn't characterize them as flashbacks because I've only known flashbacks from like watching Magnum PI or something like that, and I'm like, oh no, that's a flashback. It's like my brain will bring this memory up that I don't want to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And then either if I'm asleep or daydreaming, and it'll come in and I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, oh shit, that's actually flashbacks, and they're there. Those demons are there and they want to come out. And I don't blame anybody who's like, I'm going to drink or take a drugs. I don't have to have that happen. And if you lose control of that, maybe my gate is just small enough that I can barely manage it. But you don't know. It's like when you start drinking when you're a kid. You might be an alcoholic and should ever have that first drink.
Right.
But you just don't know until you have to deal with these things and I don't want everybody to think like I've got acid in my head, man. I'm having fun. Man.
No,
it's just
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. It's almost a feeling too. I mean, you have the memory, but you feel whatever like it was intense fear. It's there, just for a moment. It's hard to explain, but and it's kind of cool to talk about because you don't think anyone else will understand it either.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't sure if you were going to understand what I was saying because it's not a memory; it's a little more visceral. It's you feel it more, and it takes my breath away. And it's fast. It's just I'm not like there I am in the jungle again. It's not that. It's just
it's almost like that period where you're half awake and half asleep.
Like that too, yeah.
Lucid dream type thing where it's there, but compartmentalization is a lot of it, and part of it is like again, I haven't had to see well, you see photographs of everything, but I haven't had to be present in some truly gruesome, violent situations. I've had deal with guns and gun to my head and all that stuff, but that's more. I'm here, right? It worked out.
Yeah.
But the people that do, that's even it's even worse. Losing a buddy or losing I don't know how you deal with that. But going back to the original thing, I'm kind of breaking open that part about family and was I a good dad? Should I have done something else? But I don't know else what I would have done, Yeah. And I think I can only hope that my kids seeing me do something I really love to do and doing it as well and doing it, overcoming the challenges that were involved, that, at least they got something from that, none of them went into what I do. So
thankfully, right?
Yeah. In a way, I was kind of disappointed at first, but when I look at it, it was probably good. It's probably good. That in different, not in a field that I went into, journalism or whatever. It's kind of hard to make a living at, but also just their lives will be different, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And you can get nostalgic and idyllic about how you might have been a dad. I know me when I worked in corporate America, I couldn't control my ego and my maverickness. And so I was out of place there, and I would challenge authority for no damn reason, And so I found the best spot that was available to me. Maybe I would have made a few different decisions here and there. And I often think, like, when I drive by Fort Huachuca, the home of Army spies, I always think, like, man, I could end up back here in a different career if I stayed in a different, whatever. There's all that kind of stuff. And I wish my daughter and I, we get along great. We have a great relationship, but it don't have that kind that you might imagine that you would have. We have the one we have, and it's good. And I'm thrilled that my daughter has a calm life and doesn't have all the chaos that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom gets all the credit. She gets all the credit. But would I want to run that whole gauntlet again, 18 to 56? maybe for fun, but I think the outcomes are too good for me overall. Like I'm here.
I agree.
And yeah, a lot of bad things happen, but I wouldn't want to risk it, you know?
Yeah, I know. I feel fulfilled. I feel I did the best I could with something I had the skill set to do, and you know, with the right values. And that's the hard part. It's easy to, like you talked about the corporate climbers. There's a lot of things you know you give up if you want to keep your values. You know.
Yeah.
And you can't whine about it. You know, I'm glad I made the choice that I did. Yeah, there were a few places where maybe I could have made more money if I would have compromised on what I believe. I know that could have, but you know what? At the end of the day, I got enough money. Having more money wouldn't make me happier. Put it that way. But not having a sense of, you know, like consistency about what I believe, you know, that I'm willing to sell it out for the next paycheck. No, I never did that, and I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah. Let's sell these books real quick. The Great Pretense, everybody. It comes out. It's out now, right? February 26th.
It's out. It's out. It's out.
Damn.
Yes.
There's the link, everybody. It'll be in the remarks if you're on a platform that has the remarks in it. Otherwise, it's in the actual show notes if you guys want to get. Or look, you guys aren't dummies. Just type in the Great Pretense and Bill Conroy's name, and all of a sudden it's gonna boop. It's gonna come up. Amazon, wherever you guys are gonna. But look, you know what I always say: buy two and buddy read. Start a book club. That guy's the book author right there. He'll come and talk to your book club, whether it's virtual or whatever. He'll do that. I'm, you know,
I certainly would. And you're supporting independent journalism because the work I did was, you know, I had to rely on a team of people in a newsroom. And I couldn't have done it without them. So you're in you know, anyway, you're supporting independent journalism if you buy the book, and you know, lets me do another book for one thing.
Yeah, and just, you know, books make good gifts to everybody. So like these aren't, you don't got to be fancy. You don't got to buy someone a fancy toaster that's got the AI in it. Just buy a fucking book and support these guys. You know, not that hard. I know we didn't talk a lot about the actual book and the stories in it, but I love that we talk shop in a way that
there's some of that in the book. There's some of it. I talk about some of these issues about journal. Yeah, in the book.
Yeah. So. If you could change journalism in some way, you know, you get a hold of what's her name over there at the Post or whatever it is, CBS. How do you help these guys? Because I watch news. You know, my degree is in TV radio. My undergrad is in TV radio broadcasting, right? So I learned the ethos and everything. We studied, you know, all the law cases. I understand, like, when you protect the source, you go to prison for them, and we're not joking about that when we say that. For whatever reason, we all buy into, I'll go to prison if I have to, right? So where are those people? Why don't I see them on TV?
Yeah, you know? It's the business, the internet. What's that old song? Video.
Killed the radio star. Yeah,
killed the radio star. And internet kind of killed journalism in many ways. I mean, it's a guy offers great promise for it. There's a lot of independent voices out there now that we didn't have, but you got trying to find them, and you know, that's half the struggle. In the agenda setting media, like the Times and the Washington Post and, you know, the Wall Street Journal, they still play a role, but most of, you know, what they do gets like set into this echo chamber and distorted, which is social media. Most people are getting their news off of social media. So it's just a lot harder for journalism to break through, good journalism. And you still have it. I mean, let's be honest, ProPublica has done some really good stuff, right? Across the board, you know, you've seen good investigative reporting here and there across all the agenda setting media, but it's just not a focus. And because media's been so consolidated and owned by these huge corporations, like I said, that when push comes to shove, you know, the buck, you know, will prevail. And so if you're doing something that challenges the, you know, current power structure of the administration, and that administration threatens you, if you're a corporate leader, you're going to, you know, take the task. You know, it's easy to shut the story down, easy to shut the journalist down. It's the easiest path. So we only have power in our ability to break through and get to readers. So we got to constantly be finding the platforms to do that. Shows like yours, where you can talk about journalism, and challenge face, Yeah, it helps. So I don't know what the new landscape looks like for journalism after in the next 10, 20 years. But with AI coming, I think the challenge of authenticity is what we've got to take head on. And I think you, as a journalist, you got to be authentic, and authentic journalism is the thing that will break through. And that just means, like I was talking about, owning your point of view, don't punch down, and get it right. Get the facts right. Don't twist them, even if they're not, even if the story isn't what you thought it was going in because of whatever you believed, you better let the story tell, the facts tell the story, not your twisting and, deciding it. My boss is going to like it better if I write it this way, or I'm going to get more page views if I, lead with the gory part and don't discuss the fact that violence is actually down until way down in the story, right? The different, those different choices we make,
Yeah.
So, but I think that's what we got to look for. And Substack is doing some of that. It's on YouTube. It's, it's in this social media world that is now where we find the news. And it's, the agenda setting media have less and less power to set the agenda.
Yeah, you really can. I don't know how you make any money doing it, but you can make a living going out and just getting great sources, covering stuff just straight up and down. Don't lean left, don't lean right, don't go to class to tell your story, and just go source things. And a lot of the stories that are hard news are boring as fuck because you're just saying this is what happened and it's what actually happened, but you're not doing anything salacious. You're not, you're not going, if it bleeds, it leads. I mean, yes, you're going to tell that story, but the next time someone says billionaires, I'm like, oh, that's just a bunch of bullshit story. That's driving class into a story that may or may not be true. And it's from a person who always goes billionaires. I'm not defending billionaires. I'm just saying that when you see these kind of things, or when you see the shocking in the headline, ignore that story. It's bullshit. It's bullshit, everybody. So don't do that. I wonder too, if the nature of ads and how we get ads and how ads are presented has changed in a way that the people at the top of the company are going to make money because their job is to run this company. We have a different job, but it's to them more simple. They need a certain number of reporters, but if you don't have that Honda client, or you don't have that Procter & Gamble client to buy full page ads in a paper or whatever it is, and you're relying on Pete, the ad buyer, to buy $100 ad this month, it's really hard to pay the bills.
No, it is. And that's, I faced that my whole career is, the budgets were always tight. You never had enough money, and they seem to get tighter. And now it's like, it's all about page views because that drives the advertising. And you can have a really good investigative story. Like you say, they tend to be hard. They're deep. They're complicated to read. They don't get the page views that, like, a car accident story, the rubbernecking. Most of the internet is rubbernecking. It's like, we saw a car accident, we're going to look at it. If traffic's moving normally, we don't pay attention to it. So that's part of it. So if you don't have that, like you said, sensational element, or that element that, drives the algorithms so that, brings readers to your story, that's more important than the story. People spend more time writing their headlines to fit the algorithm so that shows up so someone can see it. Then that's why you end up with these weird, weird headlines. And the same with the lead, the first graph where they lead, they want something. So that's, I moved away. I couldn't, I got out of the business just as I got really, really bad, and started doing my own thing. But it's there, and it's a pressure they face every day. And so you've got to, you got to find a way to go outside that. That was what I decided. I had one foot in the system and one foot out. So all the best investigative journalism I did, I was shut down at the mainstream papers. They told me to stop doing it because it was costing them. It was too much heartburn for them. So I found outlets outside of, I had permission. I didn't cheat, but most of my stuff was done as a correspondent or as a freelance journalist. So that goes to your question earlier. Why do we do this? One guy I know described it as a calling, right? I don't know about you, but I guess it sort of is. It's sort of like the uniform I put on every day. It's like,
Sure.
this is what gives me my sense of who I am, my self-worth. If they took it away from me, if I could never do it, I thought about if I can't type anymore, I can't write anymore, or my brain starts to go, soft, which happens to us as we get older, right? All that stuff, it gets harder and harder. That I fear that, because I compartmentalize it. I get it, but it's that day is coming.
Yeah. Well, listen, I've had you for more than an hour, and I dug it, every single bit of it. And hopefully you'll come back on anytime you want and talk about any current event or anything at all. It's just great to get to know you and share this shot. It's just, for anybody watching, it's like a lot of therapy when you find someone else who sees the world and has practiced in the world the way you do. And it was a real delight for me, man, to have
I enjoyed talking to you. I did. Be glad to come back. So, but I know you gotta get going. You got a lot more people to talk to. So, it was good.
This is Bill Conroy, everybody. You guys, look, tell them where to find you on whatever social media or whatever website you want, and then I'll throw that in here in the notes.
Yeah, the website for the book is thegreatpretense.org, O-R-G. And that'll have all my contact information, but everything on the book and where to get it, and other information. So that's probably the easiest.
Yeah.
And
you guys know it is.
I appreciate it. I appreciate every reader, and I do. And just like you appreciate your audience, it's like, it's a special relationship. So I appreciate anyone that buys the book. I really do.
Yeah. If you guys are watching, just do this right now. Just hit the subscribe button. Do I have to tell you these things? I say the same thing all the time. I do it.
Subscribe to his show. Do it.
Yeah. Make sure people tell people to subscribe. I'm like, don't they know? Don't you guys know? Yeah. So, and look, if you want to help keep the lights on, I don't need a lot of money, but just $5, $10 a month. If you want to do more, great. I'll take, and I put it to work. And so just go to breakitdownshow.com, hit the PayPal link, and just go, here, I'm going to give Pete a 20 spot each month, whatever it is. Look, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Just appreciate that we're out here working hard. Bill works hard. This is how you help folks like us try to do these real things. And you were talking about authenticity. Like, you have to you either are authentic or you're not. Like, when you're trying to be authentic, just trade an authentic, stack it up, don't sell it off cheap. And all of a sudden you have this authenticity. That's how you guys do this, right? So be authentic, support the show, and however you want. Everybody, I will see you all later. Bill, I'll say goodbye to you in a second. We'll see you all again really soon.